Hi and welcome to the Night Shift Court podcast.
We are three Aussie girls going under the mountain to talk fantasy books.
Join us in going beyond the pages where we will talk about our favourite authors and their series.
Come with us to explore the stories, one shift at a time. Hi ladies.
Hello.
Hi! Can you believe it?
It's the one.
It's the one. It's Legs 11.
Finally here.
I can't believe we're here already. It's been a wild ride. I'm Moen,
Pidge.
Roz.
and we're so glad that you could be here to join us for our final episode of this particular season, which is A Court of Thorns and Roses, before we move on to book 2. So if you're a Mars fan and you have not listened to this from the beginning, we urge you to go back to episode 1 where you will learn all about us, what we're doing, why we're here, because we just cannot put these characters to bed. We love them. And we wanted to come together as colleagues and friends to share our love and banter. So without further ado, let's get started.
Last chapter.
Woo!
Woo.
Chapter 46.
Yeah, it's the one.
It is the one. Feyres was dead.
Yeah.
That's where we left off.
Yeah. The glittering light from each of the High Lords was
Yes.
given to her. And she wakes up, but she's still in the throne room
Yes.
that she was in for her final trial.
So takes a breath basically
Yeah.
and realises that she's not in pain and she can see some people.
Yeah. Really, she can see really well.
She can see a whole lot differently and particularly the way she looks.
Yeah. Glowy with really long fingers is how she explains it to begin with.
Yeah.
So
She's been
she-
remade.
She realises that she is high fae.
It's so exciting.
We talked last episode about Feyre's despair and how over the second and third trial that she'd sort of withdrawn and gone more and more inside herself and was believing that she wouldn't live through the trials and that everything that she'd worked for would be taken away from her. One of the realisations she makes soon after the fact that she realises that she's high fae is that she did indeed kill those two fairies before Tamlin in the third trial. So even though she's high fae and even though she's alive and she didn't expect to be alive at the end of this, she's still crushingly upset about some of the things that she's had to do to get to this point.
Yeah. And that's the humanness in her, really. Like she goes on to feel and mourn her humanity. Is that the right word?
Yeah.
So she can't really relate to being fae for quite a long time.
Yeah.
But yeah, she really does lament and sits in her emotions about all the things that she has endured whilst having to become fae.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's not by design, is it, really? It was a last-ditch effort because they could and they did.
Yeah.
Yeah, pretty much.
The one thing that she's really worked for is her relationship with Tamlin, and she sees him for the first time without his mask on as well, and she describes him to be exactly as she imagined him to be, which is really nice because that's one thing that she does get.
Yeah. I feel like you can pretty much see what someone looks like with
Yeah.
a mask on anyway, like the way his mask anyway.
I mean, we
unless
all
it's a full
wore
face.
masks on the bottom half of our face for over a year at work. You know, I could still tell what people looked like.
Saved on so much foundation and makeup in general. It was great.
Yeah.
So there's still lots of fae in the throne room and some have left because they have realised that Amarantha is dead.
Yeah.
And we out.
The ACOTAR.
Yeah.
And all the other cronies, I guess, like the red-skinned fairies and anyone else that was on her side.
That's right.
Has bailed.
And the ones that are remaining are the ones that are thanking Tamlin and Feyre for essentially their freedom.
Yeah.
So that's quite nice.
Yeah.
And then they're straight into planning mode, really, about like next steps. Who's our allies? Where are we going to from here?
And just on that, Reese is also one of the ones that disappears very quickly.
He does.
Yeah.
He doesn't actually leave, but
No,
is
but he
not in
disappears from the
room.
throne room.
Yeah.
Leaves the throne room.
Yeah.
Remains under the mountain.
Yeah.
To have an encounter with Feyre. One thing that I think that is really important about this is that Tamlin and Feyre are finally having this moment where they can like be together, be with each other in like an unfiltered sense. And Tamlin is like caressing Feyre's tattooed area and he's like, I'm going to find a way to get you out of this. Anyway, he just gives me the ick.
Yeah, no, I agree. So he like tends to her wounds because apparently she still does have a few sort of lingering. They're alone in a nondescript room, like not a room that she's been in before, but still under the mountain. They have their alone time together, and I think it's quite nice for them as well.
Yeah.
They finally, you don't, no, obviously.
Well, you know, anyway, we'll see.
Yeah. They finally get a chance to have a sleep, which
Sleep?
well,
I don't think they sleep.
they sleep afterwards.
They sleep afterwards,
yeah.
But also it gives them a chance. Like Tam's trying to talk to Faye.
Yeah.
And she's full shutting it down.
Yes.
She's like, I don't want to think about this. I don't want to think about the tattoo. I don't want to think about the fact that I murdered two Faye. Let's just fuck and then
Have a sleep.
have a sleep.
Yeah.
And then work this out later.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're right. She's trying to
Yeah, she's avoiding.
deflect.
Yeah. That's what happens when you have PTSD.
Yeah. Trauma bonding.
Yeah, classic. She's awoken by like a pull from her stomach, but before she leaves the room to follow said pull, she mentions looking back at Tamlin and thinking, you know, that she would never sleep that soundly as what he's sleeping now. So she's still clearly really haunted by what she's done, and she's got a lot of work to do. Yep. But she does follow the pull anyway, sort of stumbling a little bit uncoordinated down the hallways and up a really, really large set of stairs out onto a balcony that she didn't know existed,
Yeah.
where she meets with Reese. She already knows that he's out there waiting, she can tell.
Yeah.
It's interesting, isn't it, how she can tell? And he says he's come to say goodbye, essentially.
Yeah. They have a brief conversation. He sort of says, she ends up saying thank you as well for his help in trying to kill Amarantha when she was being tortured by her. And Reese says to her, you know, I doubt you'll be thanking me when I bring you to my court.
Yeah.
And she's so broken down that she doesn't, so she thinks that Reese is bringing her to the Court of Nightmares, which is the under the mountain is resembled, like it's an identical match for it. So she thinks that Reese is bringing her back to under the mountain, essentially, and all the horrors that are. So, but she doesn't even react to it. She's just like,
it is what it is.
yeah, she doesn't value her own life anymore in any way at all.
Is interesting considering, like, yes, she's gone through significant trauma, but she has what she wants.
Yeah.
Because she's with Tamlin. I feel like she kind of gets the fact that that's not the end. Like,
She ruined herself in the process.
yeah,
I think.
exactly.
She did. She lost herself.
Reese stumbles away from her. And I remember when I read this for the first time and I was desperate to know what that meant and why that happened.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then he immediately winnows away and
Yeah.
she's all just
With his,
standing
like-
there like, what?
Yeah.
Yeah.
With his wide eyes and he's
shock.
very shocked.
Yeah. And I was desperate to know what that actually meant.
Yeah.
And we will come to learn what that means.
I do just want to say there's like a point where Faye and him are talking and they're discussing like how she's feeling. And she's talking about her like human heart.
Yeah.
And Reese says to her, be glad of your human heart, Feyre, pity those who don't feel it all.
Yeah.
Which I think is such like a profound thing.
Yeah.
Especially like from him. Like he's obviously not been able to feel for a very long time
Yeah.
because of what he's had to do.
Sarah leaves a few little nuggets in this chapter as well of things that are to come. So on the way out of the throne room, Feyre actually mentions that Amarantha's body was taken away to be burnt. However, that Durian's eye and his finger bone were missing
Yeah.
as well. So yeah, like at the time I glossed over that thinking not much of it.
Yeah.
Definitely.
But now doing a reread, I'm like, that's important.
Yes.
Really important.
Yeah, very interesting how many of those things you pick up on the second or third read and you're like, oh, that.
The penny drops.
Yeah. Tamlin and Feyre leave under the mountain the same way they came, or the same way Feyre came in through that really small, dingy, wet, dank pathway through the mountain. So, and she mentions that they are standing on top of like a knoll looking down at the spring court. She sees Alice and the two boys playing safely.
Yeah.
And they stand there for what Sarah describes as hours until the sun goes down and until Lucian calls them inside for dinner.
Yeah.
And it ends really nicely with her saying, let's go home.
Yeah.
And that's all lovely the first time you read it. And you're like, what? Why is there so many more books?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Why? Where is it going?
Yeah, I thought it was
Yeah.
done.
It is a really nice ending. And I think that that is important for a book, the first in the series.
Yeah.
Because you want a tie off without there being too many things that you're like, right, must read the next one.
Yeah.
Because imagine like reading this and not having the next one to go on to.
Yeah.
Like I read ACOTAR at a time where all of the
Yes,
current
same.
ones that are out are out.
Yeah. me too.
Imagine having to read them and then waiting. Like I can take myself back to Harry Potter when we were waiting for that release.
Yeah.
Can you remember that?
Yeah.
Those midnight releases were so mental, and I can just remember like begging mum to take me to the bookshop the day that things came out.
Yeah.
There was no greater anticipation.
Yeah.
When
So
did
it's
Silver
nice.
Flames come out?
Well, I don't know.
So I'm just going to look that up now.
okay.
because
You look that up.
I don't
I'm
know
pretty
about
sure.
Silver Flames, but I know that when I read book 1 from this series, Roz, you had actually lent it to me. So I didn't have any of the other books. And I remember finishing it and I was sitting outside in the sun and I was like, oh my God. And I had a young baby at this point and I was like, in the car.
Yeah.
Right now.
And and off we went and brought the rest of them
Yeah.
because I had to know. And I even remember Googling like, why did Reese stumble away from Feyre?
Yeah.
Oh, really?
And what I really love about Sarah Mass's community that she's built, and I've noticed it even with her other series as well, is that not a lot of people do spoilers.
Yeah.
So when I Googled it, there was actually nothing that came
Yes.
up as the answer. So like all of her loyal followers have been like, no, we're not ruining this.
No, why would we do
for
that for
new-
you?
That's epic.
for-
Yeah.
And it's the same with her other spoilers. There wasn't TikTok back when I started
Yeah.
this book, but now that there is TikTok, they will say it very specifically, like spoilers, and they don't put it up immediately, whatever it is that they're
Yes.
going to say or
yeah,
do.
they give you time to click out.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's really
because-
respectful, isn't it?
And so I think all of her followers are like that, where they want people to have this experience that we had when we first read these books, and so they don't supply spoilers.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like I said, it wasn't, when I Googled it, I couldn't find the answer to it. That was how desperate I was. But then I got in the car and went and brought the
So
book and
good.
started it.
I
Started
love it.
reading it.
I-
How long did it take you to read the series? You're a quick reader.
Well, this was actually the first series I read when I started getting back into reading. So I was
Yeah.
probably a lot slower
Okay.
than I am now.
Sure.
So now my average is about 4 a week.
Yeah.
But I
Such a bitch.
Oh, God.
But yeah, I don't actually know. I didn't really keep track until I started my Kindle Unlimited membership, because that was, you can
before,
go
like,
back and count and
Yes.
stuff. But this was the first, and this was I read the physical copy of this, not
Sure.
the Kindle version of it. So no, I have no idea, but I certainly brought all of the rest of the series that day, and then just went sort of one after the other.
Yeah.
So
I think it's a pretty magical series when you can take someone like me who has not read a fiction book since I was, in high school essentially, and someone who's always had an affinity for fantasy on gaming, because I've been a gamer, and for watching, series on television and movies for that matter. Fantasy is my genre of choice because it's like an escapism thing for real life, because our jobs are so serious.
yeah.
And we deal with so much in the way of shit and trauma that by the time we get home, we don't want to talk about that.
No.
We don't want to talk about anything in the real world. Certainly don't want to watch the freaking news. So the easiest way to dissociate from it is to read fantasy, because it's so far removed from reality that you find it easy to quieten your mind.
Yeah.
And so for me, I literally breezed through this series as quickly as a slow reader can. Shout out to all my slow readers out there. Not everyone can read 4 books a week, and that's okay. So if your TBR is as long as your bloody life expectancy or longer, don't feel disenchanted, because I'm right there along with you. But I really was so proud of how much I read, how quickly, because I was fully invested in this.
Yeah. I like to describe the way I feel about reading as reading gives me somewhere to go when I have to stay where I am.
Yeah. That's so nice. That's such a good way to put it.
That's so lovely.
So on Googling, Silver Flames came out in 2021,
Okay.
early 2021.
So COVID.
Yeah, so I think I'm pretty sure it came out the year, or like it came out around the time I started. Like I was reading and this came out, because I definitely didn't read it like straight away.
Right,
I'm pretty
okay.
sure.
Yeah.
Like you guys have said, it's hard to explain what reading means to you, especially when you do have a job where things can be hectic a lot of the time, and being able to get lost into something else and get lost into characters and a complete other universe. I'm lucky enough to be able to like imagine.
Yeah.
I have a very good imagination. So when I'm reading, I can see it all pretty clearly in my mind, especially when you've got the kind of writing that Sarah J. Maas does. And after I read this series, I went straight into Throne of Glass, which I absolutely adore. And
Yeah.
I'm pestering you two to read, because
Yeah.
I need to be able to talk about it, because it's,
Sorry.
that's fine. Yes, it's
I'm on the
okay.
Crescent City train currently.
Yeah.
So I need to finish that, because I'm very aware, like you say,
Yes.
the spoilers are quite respectful, but there is
they're gonna
still
come.
things that like the more you produce content about
Yes.
ACOTAR, the more things get fed to you from the Massverse, and
Yeah.
it's quite hard to avoid. So I guess now that we've finished this particular book, let's recap on what we first asked one another about favourites. Maybe favourite tropes, favourite themes, favourite characters on this particular book, because it's easy to differentiate now that we've just focused on ACOTAR versus all of the other books, because we all had favourites that aren't in this book.
Yeah.
So, Rosal,
Yeah, okay.
favourite character / moment in the book.
I think
Thoughts?
with this book, my favourite character is Lucian. I just think a majority of what he says, like he's quick tongue, like he's just so funny,
Yeah.
and he's so wary of everything. I don't know what it is. I don't know if I see myself in Lucian. I don't know what it is.
Cute.
It's just like, he's just a funny little thing, isn't he?
Yeah.
He's just
a dude.
He's just a dude.
He's a dude.
Yeah.
I feel like he's got so much character in
Yes.
comparison to someone like Tamlin.
Yeah.
Though, like you
100%.
don't see. We obviously know who he is and know what he looks like and stuff, but I don't get a lot of his little quirks like you
Yes.
do with Lucian.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, which is why I quite like him as well.
Yeah,
in
within
book.
this book, he's my favourite in this one.
I don't think Tamlin has quirks. Like even within his character development, I just don't think he has much
He's very
about
vanilla.
him. He is very vanilla, which is why I don't like him and why I'm just like, oh,
And I mean,
stop
his quirks
talking.
are negative, I think.
Yeah, he's just a brooding narcissist. I just don't like it. Anyway,
Yeah.
so I know your favourite character's Lucian. Do you have others?
I think, at the risk of sounding really stereotypical, it's probably Reese.
Yeah.
But not just because he's tall, dark, handsome,
Delicious.
all powerful, you
Yeah.
know, whatever. I find his particular personality, like that he's quite flamboyant.
Yeah.
Yes.
And everything he says has meaning, but you don't know what that meaning actually
Yes.
is. I find him quite cunning and ambitious.
Yeah.
And I quite like that about
Yeah.
his character.
Yeah.
I think that, my favourite moment, oh God, let me think. So my favourite moment, I think, from this book does also include Reese. And it's probably the time where they are in his bedroom and she's cleaning the lentils out of his fireplace. Yeah. So I quite like that scene in particular because he shows, I guess we learn a bit more about him, I think, in that scene than in other scenes as well.
Yeah.
It's where he begins to give really tiny tidbits of information that are actually true about him. The funniest scene, I think, is the fiddling.
Oh my God.
And I think it's
I think we don't need.
I'm not going to say anything.
I think we don't even need to. We will.
What about you,
Hours.
Moen?
I think my favourite scene is when Feyre traps the cereal.
Oh, yeah.
I think guys, I forgot to bring this up earlier. So now's probably a good time. I've been listening to the graphic audio version of ACOTAR.
Oh.
So it's like a movie for your ears, basically. And so it's got different voices for each character. It has like background music and sound effects and stuff. It is really, really good.
Okay.
So you need to download that. I listened to it on Audible.
Okay. What's it called?
It's just A Court of Thorns and Roses graphic audio edition or a dramatized edition or something like that.
Okay.
Very easy to differentiate between the normal Audible one and this particular one because it's in 2 parts as well.
Okay.
Because it's a larger file, I guess, because
Yep.
it's, the things. But yeah, when she traps the surreal, like the whole thing, the surreal is epic. For a character who's so disgusting, I love them. And like obviously we're all fans of the surreal
Yeah.
and a cup of tea. But I think other than that, my favourite character is Feyre because she overcomes so much in her human life and then gets thrown into, like, can you imagine? Get thrown into a world where like everything's a fantasy basically. And like it's obviously a reality for her in her mortal realm because fairies exist. It's not like our mortal realm, for example, where like, well, clearly fairies exist, but you know what I mean? Like it's not, they're not just, over the wall there.
Yeah.
And they don't integrate with the humans
No, there's no impending war from the fairy
that
world
we know
right
of.
now.
Yeah. I mean, who knows?
God, I wish there was.
Oh,
Yes, I know.
look, take me with you. So yeah, Feyre, because she overcomes so much. She's a warrior. She's the strong female character. She overcomes a lot. Yeah, she's just the best for me in this,
all very
alongside the
true.
surreal. Yeah.
Amazing. Well, next episode.
I'm a bit sad. I'm a bit sad. That's episode 11. Next time, episode 12 will be introducing A Court of Mist and Fury.
Very exciting.
Get reading if you haven't already. We love you
Yes.
so much. We'll see you next time. That's it for this episode of the Night Shift Court podcast. Thank you so much for listening. Please head over to Instagram and TikTok and give us a follow at the Night Shift Court.
Please leave us a good review on Spotify or wherever you're listening.
And if you'd like to reach out, you can contact us at thenightshiftcourt@gmail.com.
This shift is over.
Blessed be the fruit.
I hope the night is kind.